All right, I'd like to talk today about the problems I've had with the Z magazines, the Shockwave Z magazines, getting them to fit into my M11-9. Now, the M11-9 was manufactured between 1983 and around May 19th, 1986, when the machine gun ban went into effect. There were about 17,000 transferable M11-9 submachine guns that were made during that time. 14,000 of these 17,000 guns were actually manufactured in the first 5 months of 1986. And they were in a hurry to get those guns out, and sometimes the guns weren't made perfectly. Now, first of all, I bought this particular gun. This is just the lower receiver that's selling for like $8,000 now in 2021, which to me is a little crazy, but this is the lower receiver. I didn't think I needed to have the upper on here because I wanted to show you how the magazines fit in here. In the beginning, there was the Zytel magazines. This is an original pouch that you used to be able to buy from Cobra Firearms. SWD Incorporated was the company who made the guns, manufactured the guns, but they were sold through another company that were both owned by a guy named Wayne Daniels. And that company was called Cobra Firearms. That's why these guns are most often known as Cobras. Now, Cobra is a registered trademark that Wayne Daniels had, and he got that from the original guy who came out with the Cobra trademark, and that was Gordon Ingram himself. So in the beginning, we had the Zytel magazines. They used to sell this pouch with 4 magazines and the pouch for $38. 4 magazines and the pouch for $38. These are your Zytel magazines. Now, a lot of people say these magazines are crappy, but at under $10 a piece, they weren't bad. Then came '94, came the first assault weapons ban that banned the high capacity magazines, and then the price of these went through the roof. The biggest problem with these particular guns is that the feed lips wear out over time, and that causes the guns to misfeed. Now, recently, a company called Shockwave, they came out with a metal magazine. They call these Z magazines, and here's the original Zytel. Here's the Shockwave, which is a nice compact. This was 32 rounds, the original. This is 30 rounds here. They also came out with a 50-round magazine that's also metal. You can see the difference in the size of these right here. Now, I bought these. I bought my first 2 some years ago. It was sort of like the earlier runs on these. And the first thing I found out when I put these original 2 magazines, these Z magazines, in this gun is they would not seat all the way in. And the reason why they wouldn't seat all the way in is because on these guns, sometimes when they welded these magazine housings on the receivers here, they were a little off. And you'll see that there's an opening here that's cut in the bottom of the receiver here where the magazine goes through. Okay. You see? Now on this particular gun, this magazine housing was welded a little off. And if you look in here, this edge here, okay, right here, this edge was actually like a lip. It formed a lip here. It sort of overshot where the housing was. It was actually hitting the lip. The magazines, the Z magazines, were hitting this lip, so they wouldn't go all the way through. I actually had to take a file. I actually had to take a gunsmithing file, and I had to file down this lip to allow the magazines to go through. And then they would fit. Now later on, I got a couple of other Z-Mags that I just picked up last week, and they were really tight as well. Now I started figuring out what the problem was with these. And if you look down this magazine well, you will see this is the nut that holds your the screw that screws on your handle, your grip, and you'll see 2 welds that went through into the magazine housing, and one of these welds was sticking out, and I actually had to take this file again, and I had to file that weld down. Now you also, not only do you have welds over here by the nut that holds your grip on, you also have a couple of welds in the front here. Let's see if I can try to get you to see it. But if you look in the front, there's welds in the front and the top here on either side here. And that is the welds for your trigger housing. And sometimes those welds can go through too and cause the magazines to fit in there tight. So if you have problems getting these magazines in, these Z-mags, check to make sure that these welds aren't sticking out. The welds here for your trigger housing, and the weld over here by your, and the weld over here by your grip screw nut. Check to make sure that those welds are not sticking inside your magazine housing and hitting up against your magazine. Those are the big problems right there. And again, make sure that your magazine housing is lined up correctly with your magazine cutout so you don't have a lip over here for the magazines to hit. So that's important there. But worse, the reason why these new Z-mags have got such a problem fitting is that the new Z-mags, if you can look right here, I actually had to file these. The new Z-mags have a bulge right here by where the edge is. There's a bulge here that I actually had to file down because it's sticking out. And this end over here is actually sticking out farther than the original Z-mags. Now I'm going to have to either paint this later or maybe cold blue it to put some kind of a finish on it. But if you're having trouble with these magazines, look in your magazine housing again for the welds that are in there and that lip on the magazine housing cutout. But also look if you got these new Z-mags, look and see if you got this bulge over here that's causing problems. And that's how I ended up getting these to fit. This is an original. This is one of the first ones I got. Now, the new 50 round magazines, I just got this last week too, and there's a little bulge on these, and you can see where it's sort of scraping a little bit, but it's not nearly as bad as on the 30 rounders. Maybe because their jigs or something that they're using are a little old or something. That's all I can think of. But the 50s seem to fit better. But I just showed you what to look for if you have problems getting these Z-mags to fit. It's partly with the Z-mags, especially the new ones, and it's partially with the quality control they had when they built these guns back in '86. Now, I hope this helps some people to get these Z-mags to work, because usually once you get them to, because for me, once I got them to fit in the guns, they ran 100%. So I like the Z-mags. I just wish I would fit better. I also wish I could buy these original Zytel magazines for less than 10 bucks a piece now. That would be nice too. That's all I got to say. Thank you for the wife for filming this.